It's time for the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. Stay tuned as we discuss what's happening in the world of local and national sports in Southeast Missouri and beyond. And welcome back to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. We are in our original studio, but we are on our backup equipment again. So I apologize for that, but I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
And it's your boy Kyle Roberts.
And we've got another hopping, exciting show. We are hoping to be joined in a little bit by Three Rivers College softball coach and athletic director Jeff Null. The Lady Raiders softball team is in the midst of another great season, hoping they can make another run to the national tournament. They made it there 5 years ago, hoping that this is the year they're going to go back. We are going to also recap the NCAA championship game that happened on Monday night between the Michigan Wolverines and the University of Connecticut Huskies. And we are going to talk about the St. Louis Cardinals, who it's been very up and down for the Cardinals. We are recording this first segment on Tuesday morning. And the Cardinals, the good news is that we're starting rotations pretty solid. Our bats haven't been bad. Our bullpen smells about as good talent-wise as a 2-month-old cat litter box.
It's an absolute disaster. I mean, it is an utter disaster. They took a 6-3 lead after 6 innings on the road against the Washington Nationals, and in their bullpen, I'll stick with the cat analogy, hawked up a total hairball in the bottom of the 6th, giving away 6 runs to the last place Washington Nationals, and then losing that game 9-6. They're where I expected them to be at 500 this season, but they've got a -9 run differential, which is completely due to that putrid bullpen. So I mean, it's definitely not the worst run differential, but we've got to get back to 500 on the run differential, and I just can't imagine that the throwers that they are bringing out of the bullpen right now are going to be the same ones that we see in May or June.
And I'll say this, and I told you guys this when we were talking recently. If my mocked prediction of the Cardinals, having their worst record in 100 years comes to pass, it's going to be because of that bullpen.
I still think that's positively delusional. I mean, you're talking about a team that looks like the Colorado Rockies last year or the Chicago White Sox from last year.
Mark,
and the Cardinals don't look like that.
Mark, there's a difference
Not
between
even
being
close.
There's a difference between being a 94-loss team and a 115-loss team like the Colorado Rockies. I'm not saying we're going to lose 115 games, but I'm saying we could lose 94 to 100. That's a big difference, and that's realistically possible. And I'm going to say it again, if we do, it's not the end of the world. This is a rebuilding team. Rebuilding teams lose 90, 95 to 100 games. And you know what? If they do a rebuild right, like the Chicago Cubs did last decade and like the Houston Astros did last decade, 3 or 4 years after they have one of those 90 to 100 loss seasons, they win a championship. And I'm hoping that this team does it, and I would love to see us do it. I think we've got the pieces to do it. But anyway, I digress.
But the pieces
But we absolutely do.
I
But
think we've got the pieces to win a championship in 4 years, guys.
Well,
no, we absolutely do. But dear God, not with this pitching staff. I'll give you some numbers, and these numbers make my butt itch just reading them. In 2026, so far, this is the Cardinals bullpen. 41 innings pitched, 47 hits, 29 runs allowed, 28 earned runs, 28 walks, 29 strikeouts, and an ERA of 6.15. I beg your damn pardon.
Oh yeah, no, it's horrible. But on the bright side, we're still a game ahead of the Cubs.
Yeah,
for now.
And I'm not hurting with that. Which them struggling is a surprise. But we have a major league ready lineup and defense that's only going to get better, and a double-A bullpen.
Yeah,
I should not be having internal panic attacks with a 3-run lead.
Well, but you should also not take April too seriously.
This is also true.
You're not gonna win or lose a division in April. If this team continues to play 500 through the end of the month and well into May, I'd say they're exactly on pace. And it's like this is a team that I absolutely expect to finish 81 and 81. I mean, they're going to be right around 500, but they're not going to be. They're not going to end up with fewer wins than a team from more than 100 years ago. It's simply not going to be happening. That's not the team that Chaim Bloom has built or is building. Help will be coming for the bullpen sooner or later. They're just, they're not going to promote their prospects out of AAA or even AA this soon in the season. Frankly, the pitchers like Swanson, who gave up 3 runs in that disastrous 6th inning. He's just not going to be with the club that long. But, obviously he has something that they want to see. So they're going to keep throwing these guys out into these situations, sink or swim, because I will say this about the rebuild. They don't have to compete for the playoffs this year. That's not their goal. So,
not at all.
They're throwing out, dirty cat litter box quality pitchers right now to see if there's anything worth saving for them before they open up those roster spots. You already see how they did that with the pitching staff. They sent down their worst right-handed starter, whose name doesn't matter because he's gone, and they brought up a left-handed pitcher to take up his place in the rotation. And I like the message this sends to the team. It's like, if you're not performing, we're going to send you back down and bring up somebody who can.
Well, and again,
now as a reprieve, fellas, for today's game, we are facing a familiar face who is worse than he was with us, and that's Miles Michaelis.
Oh my God!
Has an ERA of 14.46 and 9 1/3.
Yeah, the boys are going to rake this afternoon.
Well,
I do feel good. Not only do I feel good about that, it's also the fact that Mike McGreevy is pitching, and he has been a bright spot for the Redbirds on the mound. He didn't get the win in his debut start, but he has an ERA of 2.53 with a WHIP under 1. So that does give me something to look forward to for today's game as of this recording, because with Miles Michaelis, my God, has been a train wreck.
Well, guys, as I was going to say, it is still early. A lot can happen between now and the All-Star break. A lot can happen between now and September. And again, if the Cardinals do have a bad season this season, it's not a big loss. Because the Cardinals' best days, the one thing we all agree on is that the Cardinals' best days are probably 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And that's the big thing. That matters more than if this team goes 81 and 81 this year or 62 and 100 this year. What we do this year doesn't matter. What we do in 2028, 2029, and 2030 is all that matters, because if we're winning a World Series in 2030, nobody's going to care how we do this year.
Well, I disagree on the premise that the record this year doesn't matter. Because part of what the Cardinals need to do is that they need to regain their fan base. They need they need to turn Busch Stadium back into the home of the best fans in baseball. They need to turn that home field advantage into a place where other teams don't want to come to play. So again, you don't have to compete for a playoff position, but you also don't want to be the doormats of the Central Division or the doormats of the National League. Now, again, you could look at it from glass half full and say, well, our hitters scored 9 runs, but the bullpen gave up 7, in the last 3 innings, and you're losing games that way. But again, that's something that's not sustainable. They're not going to be throwing out relievers who are giving up 4 or 5 runs per inning. That's just not going to continue to happen as the season goes along. And they have, and this is why you brought Bloom in the first place. He's already rebuilt the farm system where they do have players, including pitchers that they can bring up. Switch pitcher Sinche had his first outing and pitched, I believe it was 5 1/3 innings, and he had like 11 strikeouts. Now, he only switched to pitch from the left, I think, to one hitter, but man, that's exciting to think about whether he could come up late this season for the big club. And they have other pitching prospects down in the farm system. They're not going to rush them along, and so, yeah, the bullpen is going to look bad for this point, but
it's just one of those situations. That's a situation where we're just kind of biting the bullet and biding our time. Like, we realize this is going to be a slog with this bullpen, but let's just get through it this year. And we don't want to blow the development of our young kids that we're going to need later. So it's gonna be a pain in the butt with this bullpen. But as long as we acknowledge that and try to accentuate all of our biggest strengths to offset our biggest weaknesses, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, and Bloom needs to show, first the fans, and I think secondarily, ownership, that his plan is on the right track. And so, I think just having a disastrous season in which, you see like 10, 12, 15-game losing streaks, which, by the way, is how you lose 100 games. You go on those huge losing streaks. If they can, as long as they win, 2 out of 3 games in split series, that's on pace to finish 500. And to me, that's the primary goal until you really stabilize this pitching staff, is a 500 record.
It's going to be interesting, guys. We're going to switch gears, and we're going to talk about another big thing in the sports world on Monday night, which, like I said, which right now is last night because we are recording on Tuesday morning, at least this segment. The Michigan Wolverines did something they have not done in more than 35 years, and they won a national championship beating the Yukon Huskies. By the way, before we get into that game, congratulations to Sean Cole Sr. He won the Sports Desk Group's bracket pool. He had the winning bracket. He beat out Mark 131 to 127.
Ooh.
Yeah. We both picked Michigan to win, so there was no way that I was able to overcome him with that Michigan championship. But I think the most important thing to highlight about our group is that I skunked both of you.
Yeah, I ended up finishing fourth. Basically, Sean had 131, Mark had 127. Our good friend Brad Hurt had 92. I was fourth with 88. Steve Fry was fifth with 75. Kyle was sixth with 49. And
I'm not the worst.
Dexter baseball coach Steven Edwards came in seventh at 48.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, me and Steve both had Arizona winning, and when Michigan beat Arizona Saturday night, that pretty well made it, a Sean and Mark thing. But hats off to Sean Cole; he picked a great bracket. But that was a good game last night. Even I'm a Huskies fan, even though the Huskies didn't win. That was a good game, and it was a nice win for the Michigan Wolverines, who the last time they won a national championship, was Steve Fisher's, first run as a head coach, and also was when they still had Glenn Rice. So that's going back a few years.
Glenn Rice and Runeel Robinson, who
that's right,
famously hit 2 clutch free throws to ice Seton Hall. I believe it was 79-7. It was 80-78. I believe was the final score. Honestly, I'm glad the game was close because Michigan was just destroying everybody along the way. They scored at least 90 points in every tournament game going into the title game. But it was a phenomenal win and a great turnaround for Michigan and head coach Dustin May. 2 years ago, they were 8-24. That's an insane 2-year turnaround. Thus proving, and say what you will about NIL, because you still got to coach the kids and they've got to buy in and believe. But that's an amazing turnaround in a tough conference because Illinois out of the Big Ten also went to the Final Four. They had an amazing season. Purdue's always a tough out. So Michigan ran a good gauntlet to get there. Major congratulations.
Yeah, whether we're talking about basketball or football, we're gonna have to have some sort of guidelines for NIL and transfer portal. I mean, it's like I am 100% in support of college players sharing in the massive revenues that their efforts generate. So I've got no problem with that. But the idea that your entire team is composed of nothing but unrestricted free agents every year it's just a competitive disadvantage. You know, there's a reason why we have contracts in professional sports, you know, because you have to have some kind of stability in order to build a winning program. Now, I've heard some people advocate, and I'm not sure if this is a good idea or not, but the idea of having college athletes actually be employees of the colleges and universities that they play for, in that they sign a contract and there's terms of a contract. And speaking like, you know, like for football, you would have 2 or 3 year contracts where after the contract expires, then you could be a free agent. You could transfer if you wanted to, or, you know, the school could sign you to a contract extension, you know, in that way. So, also another idea that baseball needs to adopt from the NFL is that when we are talking about the big sports, men's and women's basketball, as well as college football, you need to put salary caps and salary floors, and you need to do revenue sharing, especially in football. This is going to be the best way, you know, to break the stranglehold that the Big Four programs have on the college championships, spreading more of that money around. And the NFL has already showed that everybody can get stinky, filthy rich doing it this way. But at the very least, we need to bring some stability to the transfer portal, because frankly, you know, it's hard to get behind a team when the only thing that you have to root for is the logo or the name, where you just don't recognize the players from year to year.
Exactly.
You actually brought up something. I had not thought about a salary floor and revenue sharing specifically for the FBS, because the disparity is getting, and it's awful, because we've always been of the belief that variety and parity is the spice that really makes college football feel so special that anybody on any given Saturday can. And now the disparity, say, look at the Big Ten in its twisted, warped way where it's partially now the Pac-12. And look at the only true regional conference left in the FBS, the MAC. They, for the most part, there's no chance in hell, unfortunately. And it's terrible, because look at the spending, but the budget of a Michigan and compared it to an Eastern Michigan.
Right.
Like, what are we doing here? There's got to be some sort of revenue sharing program put in place to at least semi-level the playing field. And honestly, 2-year contract minimum.
Yeah.
2-year.
I think that's an interesting point, and I'm going to say this real quick before you go to break. You know, we don't need to go back to what we used to have, but I also feel like the pendulum has swung too far the other way, and getting that middle ground that we talked about, you know, that you guys talked about, I think would be really good. You know, have some limits on the portal. Don't get rid of it, but have some limits on it where it's not just complete chaos, and have some sort of revenue sharing, because if you don't, it's just going to be like having big market teams in baseball. Whoever, you know, spends the most money or has the most money is going to win it every year, and that just kind of defeats the purpose. And on that note, we are going to take a break, and we will be back in just a bit on the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
This is Three Rivers College women's basketball coach Alex Wiggs, and you are listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
And we are back on the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller, and I am now joined by Three Rivers College softball coach and athletic director Jeff Null. Coach, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Looking, you know, really excited about it. You guys, first of all, Softball is having a great season. Y'all are 27-7. I think you're in a great position to possibly get back to the national tournament for the first time in, I want to say, 5 years. So, that's really exciting. Y'all are doing work, and I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit unexpected, to be honest. We have a very young group overall, and a lot of freshmen. And we knew we had a talented group, but we didn't know exactly how talented, I guess. And had a solid fall. And this spring, man, the kids have really made a jump from the fall to the spring. I think getting in the weight room and all that really helped this group out. And this spring, man, I mean, I think we're hitting 370 as a team, and team ERA is around 2.25, 2.4, somewhere.
Nice.
So, pitching it a little bit, hitting it a little bit, and confidence is growing, and we definitely will have a shot. Our region's pretty well balanced, top to bottom. So, I mean, I think anybody can beat anybody on any given day. But with that being said, we're currently sitting in the top spot right now. Close second is Jefferson, and it's going to be a dogfight all the rest of the year.
It sounds like it. Tell me about your pitching first of all.
Yeah, got a couple freshmen, 3 of them that have been logging a lot of innings. Our sophomore pitcher has been hurt this spring a little bit, so we're kind of been a little shorthanded on the staff. But man, two of our girls, Addison Cooper, I mean, she's been region pitcher of the week 3 times already this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's sitting around a 2.1 ERA, 13-3, I believe, so far. And then Adele Ohlmeyer she's up in northern Missouri, Class 1 kid that's kind of a diamond in the rough, and she's really made some big jumps this spring, and I think she's sitting currently around 11-3 or something like that, and with a 2.2 ERA. So, those two have been workhorses. Of course, I got freshman Addison Ritchie, who's been serving as our number 3 and filling in the gaps for us. And so all 3 freshmen there, all 3 plan on returning. So obviously the future looks bright. But yeah, pitching's been pretty solid so far.
Yeah, and with all the pitching coming back, you've got a great foundation for
Yeah.
next season.
Yes, sir.
Switching to your bats, tell me about some of your hitters.
Man, offensively, I think right now we're currently 3rd or 4th in the nation in home runs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we're still behind a few games on some teams, from down south. Good old Missouri weather in the spring. But no, we split yesterday with St. Charles. It's kind of ended. I think we had an 11 or 12 game winning streak going on there. During that streak, the bats were just on fire. I mean, we had 2 games. We scored over 20. We had 1 doubleheader at home where we hit 12 home runs. Just a very, very explosive lineup, can put up a lot of crooked numbers really fast. So that makes coaching a little bit easier, a little less stressful when when you have an offense that can do that. But they've been a big part of that so far.
Indeed. And you've been AD for, I believe, close to 2 years now, and a lot of good things have happened on your watch. Your softball team's doing some good stuff. Baseball's having a good run. Men's basketball has had back-to-back 20-win seasons for the first time in almost a decade. Women's basketball keeps going to the national tournament.
Yes, sir.
That's pretty legit, and I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, being athletic director and coach has its challenges. I get to do a lot of behind the scenes work for those teams and really just try to help them out any way they need. As athletic director, of course, my goal is I want all of our teams at the national tournament. We want to make Dr. Payne spend that money, but send us all. But it's any way I can help those guys. We're very blessed at Three Rivers to have some outstanding coaches who really care about their program and kids. They have work ethics out of this world, so it's never an issue of that. But there are lots of little things that come up, getting the kids proper to the trainer and to the doctors, Our office has been handling a lot of that stuff, and it's a it's a very challenging position, but man, it's very rewarding when our teams make the national tournament. Man, that's just icing on the cake.
Yes, it is. One really cool thing I was thinking about, you've been coaching softball at Three Rivers for close to 10 years now. And one of the things that I think is really neat about your background is
Mhm.
that before you became softball coach, you had coached mostly baseball before that. Tell me about making that switch, and I'll let you go from there.
I did high school baseball for 12 years. Several local high schools around here, and to be honest, my wife, my two sons didn't play baseball, and my three daughters all played softball. So, I was going to baseball games, and my wife was hauling the girls to softball games, and I was like, well, I just need to switch over, and that way we could all be together, and that's really kind of where it stemmed from. Obviously I was a little nervous switching over from coaching boys for years to coaching, 20 girls at a time, and I didn't know how that would go, and some nerves about that. And but man, I got the job. I got in here. We got to work, and it's just been a blessing. There's a lot of positives that came out of it that I really didn't expect, and working here at Three Rivers has been a blessing, and so it's just it's gone really well. I mean, I wish I'd have made the move a long time ago.
Cool deal. And you've got another softball game coming up Thursday here in town. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we're hosting State Fair here at home. We're big region games. We're sitting right now. I think we're 12-2, and Jefferson's 11-3. So we don't have much room to spare there. But big region games. I mean, hopefully bats can stay hot at home. We tend to play pretty well here at home. Weather's supposed to be 80, sunny, and beautiful. So I mean, hopefully we get a huge crowd out here, and we can get us a couple big region wins.
And there you go. And that is Three Rivers College softball coach and athletic director Jeff Null here on the sports desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
This is Three Rivers men's basketball coach Robert Kirby, and you are listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.
And we are back on the sports desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. And as we are counting down to the NFL draft, oh, and by the way, next week is going to be our mock draft, so stay tuned for that. We're looking back 30 years to the 1996 NFL draft, and I'm going to start off by talking about the Tennessee Titans. We got three players in that draft that ended up being pretty solid. The biggest name we got out of that draft was our number 14 pick when we took Heisman Trophy winner Eddie George out of The Ohio State University. And Eddie George ended up being one of the best running backs in franchise history, arguably the best running back the Titans had since Earl Campbell. And, when people think about the Oilers / Titans having legendary running backs, Eddie George is a reason they think that. We didn't do a lot besides him, but we got Eddie George. That's what counts. The other two guys we got in that draft that were pretty good in the later rounds, we got John Runyon, legit tackle, started out with us, ended up having a great career with the Eagles. We also got Anthony Dorsett, Tony Dorsett's son, who had some good years as a safety, though he probably had his best years playing for the Oakland Raiders. But hey, you know what? We got Eddie George, and 3 years after that, Eddie, like in his fourth season or whatever, Eddie George helped us get to the Super Bowl. We had a good draft. Guys, I'll let you go from there on yours.
Well, I know that.
Go ahead, Sam, man. Let it happen.
I'm not going to have much to say because, I mean, it's like, Vikings fans have spent the past 4 years crucifying former general manager Kwesi Dofamensa for having terrible drafts. I think he was just carrying on a great tradition of terrible Vikings drafts. Listen to these names that you've never heard of. Dwayne Clemens, defensive end, or number 16 pick. James Manley, defensive tackle from Vanderbilt. They spent
an interior lineman from Vandy?
Yes, they spent a second-round pick on a defensive tackle from Vanderbilt. And remember, the 1990s were, when Vanderbilt would go 0-10 throughout their season. Mo Williams, who played a backup running back, and he was from Kentucky. Hunter Goodwin, a tight end from Texas A&M. Sean Boyd, defensive back, North Carolina. John Merrill, a tackle from Duke. None of these players amounted to anything. None of them made any sort of significant contribution. I mean, we're going to have to wait for a couple of years to talk about the '98 draft when the Vikings took a guy named Randy Moss out of Marshall University. But
you should be so thankful for those quote-unquote character issues that let him fall to you.
By the way, the character issue was that he got caught smoking weed. That was like the whole thing. It's just think about all of the players, who fell throughout the various drafts because they were smoking weed in college. Oh my gosh, it's the end of the world.
Right. Eating that ruby rat.
Yeah, but as bad as the Vikings draft was, it doesn't hold a candle to what the St. Louis Rams did in 1996.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
All right,
it's also
clear the
sad,
stage.
too.
Clear the stage. I'm a big believer. One bad draft can set a franchise back about a decade. If it wasn't for God Almighty and Kurt Warner and a whole lot of serendipity, the St. Louis Rams 96 draft would have set them back about 10 years.
Yeah.
This was horrendous. And before we even get into the draft, the fact that we had traded we had gotten a second first round pick, I believe, as a part of the Jerome Bettis deal, which we moved down to the second round and got Ernie Conwell, who was a solid blocking tight end.
Yeah.
However, we traded Jerome Bettis because, for context, we were 7-9 in 1995 and abandoned Jerome and found some guy named Isaac Bruce. Found out he was pretty good at catching the ball and decided to throw it a lot more. By the way, did you guys know Isaac Bruce still holds the NFL record for the most receiving yards by a non-Pro Bowl receiver?
Yeah.
1,781 yards in 1995, and he didn't make the Pro Bowl, despite having more yards than Jerry Rice, Chris Carter, and Michael Irvin, thus proving it's a popularity contest. I digress. So for context, Jerome wasn't happy. We moved him to fullback and stopped giving him touches. So we trade him to Pittsburgh and decide we're going to target a running back at number 6. The problem that I've always had is that when you try to give a guy who has trouble, and he's not with us anymore, God rest his soul, Lawrence Phillips couldn't be fixed by giving him money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
we fined him 30 times.
Yeah, it was, he was, number one rule of the draft, don't draft a felon. Not a good idea.
So say what you will, but Eddie George, the Heisman Trophy winner's right there.
Yeah,
he's right there.
I don't know. So, maybe Stan Kroenke was already working behind the scenes to engineer their eventual return to Los Angeles.
1 year in.
My favorite player is the Rams' third pick from the second. Touchdown, Tony Banks.
You are not about to ruin my day. You will not.
Who turned out not to be the answer at quarterback for the Rams.
No. And I'm gritting my teeth as I have to listen to this right now. Dear God. Now, I will give him this. I will give him this grace. We never had a running game to help him, and Isaac Bruce got injured in 97.
Yeah.
But in a draft that is known for being loaded at wide receiver, I mean ridiculously loaded, we took the fastest receiver in the draft in Eddie Kennison. Eddie Kennison had a nice career.
Kennison
not
was
with
good.
us.
I don't have a problem with Kennison. He was
because we didn't have a running game to balance out the promising receiving core.
Yeah. Because
Lawrence Phillips sucked and was not available. Here's the problem. That was the 18th pick. With the 19th pick in the NFL draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Marvin Harrison Sr. Ow! Oh, but it gets so much better because this is who we could have taken with pick 42. Because I said our quarterback in 1996 was Steve Walsh. I would have bit the bullet a year and waited on at least Jake Plummer in 97. Because with pick 43, former NFL leader in receptions, Muhsin Muhammad, could have had him. Yeah. Oh, this draft was legendary for all of our misses. Oh, pick 59, Ernie Conwell, the one we acquired in the Jerome Bettis trade. Pick number 61, the Philadelphia Eagles select safety Brian Dawkins.
That is the thing. The thing about the NFL draft is it's all about opportunities, and there's an important idea out of economics called opportunity cost. That whatever choice you make, you are precluding yourself from the alternative choices. And so it's really interesting to see the way these drafts unfold, and especially when you look at the other players available. We, of course, have the benefit of hindsight of seeing, who develops into all pros and who does not. But it's interesting to think about what those people were thinking at the time. It's like, why did you choose this player when this other player was available? And then
everyone starts pointing fingers and playing the blame game.
Yeah, but I really think that is the difference between successful franchises like Kansas City and Philadelphia, two teams who have been experts in drafting over the past 10 or so years, and you compare that to especially two of our franchises, to Tennessee and Minnesota. You have teams that have not drafted well, and so right now they just have with the Vikings, they lack the talent to make a deep playoff run. With the Titans, they have just lacked talent in general,
because we haven't drafted it.
Right? Yeah, and that's the whole thing. So what you really need in your organization is a group of people who can recognize players coming out of college, that you're able to recognize those traits that are going to work well at the professional level and are going to fit in with your scheme and your locker room. It is not an exact science. And, thanks to the internet and the proliferation of mock draft sites, most football fans, myself included, think that they could do just as good, if not a better job of drafting than their favorite team's general managers. But, if that were true, there would be a lot more people who had career experience as general managers. It's just it's not as simple as saying, hey, we need an offensive tackle. This guy is really, really big and really fast and had a good college career, because the NFL is littered with players who had potential, but just for one reason or another, never really turned out. Although, to be fair, I don't know what the Rams were thinking when they drafted Tony Banks. I mean, honestly.
Also, may I go and hurt my feelings some more? Third round pick at 83. This is who we passed on in the third round. Pick 86, Teddy Bruschi.
Ouch.
Pick 89, T.O.
Oh, well, you already had Eddie Kinnison, so what did you need with Terrell Owens?
We picked the wrong dude in the first place. Oh, fourth round? Yeah, we passed on John Runyon. Would not have minded. This was a legend. This was a massive. This was a Browns draft.
Well,
this was a Cleveland Browns draft.
Let me ask the Rams brain trust, and put that in air quotes. If you spent a first-round pick on a running back, why on earth did you use a third and a sixth to draft two more running backs?
Oh, and one of them we passed on was Stephen Davis, multiple 1,000-yard rusher with the Washington Commie Skin football team. That was another guy we passed on. So one thing I like to do with these redrafts, which eventually I'm going to redraft either this year or 2006, which, by the way, how do your knees feel knowing that the Baltimore Ravens made their first pick as the Ravens 30 years ago? Ice those knees down a little bit. And for me, knowing that Vince Young was drafted the year I graduated out of high school.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is these redrafts, and I always have this rule, and I did a video on my channel, which, by the way, sheep plug, K-Rob Reacts on YouTube, K-ROB. I redrafted the expansion Cleveland Browns in their first 2 years, right? But with the rules that I made, that I cannot take a player outside of the original round and pick. They have to be available at the Browns pick.
Okay.
They do still wind up with Tom Brady, but it's in the 6th round because they took a quarterback that was not Tom Brady and he was still available. So with that being said, in this video, or if I were to redo the 96 draft based on what the information we have here, the New York Jets with the first overall pick take Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
And with the 2nd overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and if you think about what they became in the late 90s, this would be unfair. Marvin Harrison, 2nd overall to the Jaguars,
Wow.
with Keenan McCardell and Jimmy Smith and Mark Brunell.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Think about that.
That's a championship team.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the biggest the biggest assist for any NFL general manager would be a time machine, or at the very least an oracle who could accurately see the future. Mike?
Yeah, one thing I was going to say before we switch gears, one thing I've always found a little bit interesting is how everybody is so quick to grade drafts as soon as the drafts are made. You really can't grade a draft until a few years later, because a draft that may look like a grade A draft now may end up being a D or an F, and vice versa. I mean, we've proven that today. But one thing we do want to talk about before we get out of here, Kyle, you got some thoughts on the St. Louis Blues, that are making a late run and are still alive with 6 games to go?
They should be so thankful that the Western Conference is awful this year. The Blues with a huge win over the best team in the NHL. They were playing home and home with the Colorado Avalanche. Beat them in Denver the other night. Robert Thomas, who everybody said, trade Robert Thomas. How about he got his first hat trick in the NHL, scored all 3 of our goals. We win 3-2. The Blues are 3 points out of the last wild card berth in the Western Conference right now. And just for clarification, 88 points in the Eastern Conference is not a playoff team. Meanwhile, the Blues have 78 points.
Yeah.
They have the same amount of points as the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, after last night's games, they're actually 8 points out of that.
Actually, 5, I think.
5. Sorry,
Yeah.
5, yeah. I was thinking 78, so that 8 was stuck in my head. I also want to give a shout out, if you go on and watch the replay of each of Thomas's 3 goals in the hat trick, give credit for assists on all 3 of those goals to Jimmy Snuggerud, who just
Snuggy Bear.
Oh my God, that last pass that he did for Thomas's 3rd goal, it was a no-look pass a la Magic Johnson during his prime in the 80s. I mean, it was so sick, just left Thomas completely wide open on the left side of the net. I just absolutely faked the goalie out of his skates. It was such a pretty move by Snuggerud.
Do you know what those 2 are starting to give me vibes of? And yes, I was only 3-4 years old, but thank you. It is feeling every bit on Hole Notes. And add in Dylan Holloway on that top line. Yeah, I think we found our top forward group, because Thomas and Snuggerud have ridiculous chemistry. In a modern sense, it's Nicholas Backstrom and Alex Ovechkin. That's asking a lot, considering Ovi's Ovi.
It's funny that you said that, though, because when I watched the replay, when I saw all of those passes that Snuggy was doing on that was the first name that popped in my head. It's like, I have not seen a center pass like that since Oates was wearing the blue note.
No, and just knowing where each other are at all times in the offensive zone is beautiful. And the Blues historically are kind of not known for playing aesthetically beautiful hockey. We kind of play mucky hockey, if you will. But dude, like, those 2 have beautiful chemistry. I love the upside in the future of the team right now. We have a lot of great kids in place that are only going to get better. Again, if we make the playoffs, and I'm like, okay, we got in, but we're legitimately 32. We are.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I asked Tuck this same question yesterday. We were chatting through text, and so I'll ask you the same question that I asked him. What benefits the Blues most? Playoff experience this year, or a lottery pick for a prospect in the future?
Oh man, we're not bad enough to get a top 3 spot. I mean, crazier things have happened where teams that are on the very edge of the lottery somehow do win. It has happened. It wouldn't hurt, but I would honestly say that just getting a lottery pick and compiling another prospect, because where we are ascending as a team and an organization right now in terms of the youth and the development of our players, you could take somebody and flip them for an established like not a star player, but somebody that's like a second tier type of guy flip for a package of prospects.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of where we are right now. If we make it again, cool. We've proven we can play with a team like Colorado on occasion, but I mean, they're a wagon at 110 points, but anything's possible. Crazier things have happened. But we've seen an 8 seed can win a Stanley Cup, and in the old playoff sense, an 8 seed can win. But we have 78 points. Like I said, we have the same amount of points as the Leafs, who are actively garbage this year. And I feel bad for Chief that he's the toughest guy on that bench, and he hasn't played a game in 20-something years.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's either or. Yeah. But I wouldn't be upset at getting a prospect.
I think they're going to have to sweep the rest of the record, and it doesn't look easy at all. They've got that home matchup Tuesday night against Colorado. Thursday they host Winnipeg, who's got a better record than them. They go to Chicago to take on the Blackhawks, who we're happy to say are eliminated from playoff consideration. Then it's 2 more home games against tough teams, the Minnesota Wild and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then they finally close out the season at the Utah Mammoth. So, I mean, other than Chicago, there's no cupcakes on that schedule. And, the Blackhawks, bad as they are, would love to play spoilers. So, I mean, I think probably the best that the Blues could hope for is going 3-3 and just falling short. But like you said, crazier things have happened at the end of a hockey season.
That's absolutely no joke, man. And like for example, you say crazier things. The New York Islanders have 89 points as of this recording. They fired Patrick Waugh as their head coach yesterday.
Oh yeah, that's all kinds of craziness going on there. I'll say the one thing that the Blues have going for them are 2 really strong goalies in Bennington and Hofer. They have both proven, especially here late in the season, that they have what it takes to win these close games, whether it's a shootout or a low-scoring game. So
I'm taking Hofer at this rate. I mean, Benner has been awful statistically this year. 12, 19, and 7 with a 329. I mean, that's bad in the 80s.
Yeah, well, Bennington's only played 2 out of the last 7 games, so it looks like Monty may agree with you and just stick with the hot hand in Hofer.
It's going to be interesting, guys. But on that note, we're going to wrap it up for this week. We got a fun show planned for next week, and then we got the NFL draft coming up in a couple of weeks, but we are doing our mock draft next week. So on that note, I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
I'm Kyle Roberts.
And you have been listening to the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.